This is Mr. MegaManFan. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. You know all the things to do. And today I found something interesting at Goodwill for only $3.99. This is one of the plug-and-play devices that was featured in Episode 7 of Starcade by JonTron. It is the Darth Vader plug-and-play, which has 5 different games on it. He famously said in that video, "The only chase I'm going on here is a chase to get my money back," but let's see if it's really as bad as all of that. Now, the bad news is when I bought this, it already had batteries inside with an expiration date of 2012, and I'm recording this in 2026, so you know that means that they expired in 2012. They're actually even older than that. The good news is they hadn't leaked, so I didn't have to clean a bunch of crusty crud out of this to get it working. I opened it, put in fresh batteries, hit the power button, and it started working right away. Now, in his video, John described Droid Invasion as some kind of weird Arkanoid clone. I don't think that's quite what we're going for here. I get more of a tower defense feel here, where relentless waves of enemies are coming at you, but you're not using plants to fight zombies, and you're not putting together an army with troops stationed at different points around the battlefield. No, you're a lone Jedi having to defend this tower all by yourself by using your lightsaber to deflect shots. And occasionally, when you destroy an enemy, they drop a power-up that enables you to enhance your lightsaber to better deflect the incoming shots. There's not a whole lot of depth to this. If you bought this plug and play and you played Droid Invasion for a few minutes, you'd probably get your fill of it at that point. I mean, you could go for a high score. There's high scores in all of these games, but I don't know if that's a significant draw. It is sort of weird that sometimes when you deflect the shots, they go at whatever random angle they want, and they even seem to rebound off the side walls as though the walls of the game were a physical impediment to the actual world that you're seeing. The logic there, I won't even try to fathom. Then we have Coruscant Attack, which, again, I'm not so sure I agree with John's assessment when he compared this to Sinistar. I get more of a Bosconian feel because you're in the center of the screen, rotating around in all directions, and taking out waves of enemy ships that are floating around in space. There's no giant floating head of anything that's coming to get you. And eventually, if you kill enough of these enemies, you get to face a huge battleship which has a bunch of gun turrets on it, and the ship itself is not an impediment to you. I thought at first that running into it would do damage and that you had to circle around it to take out the turrets, but no, it turns out you're in a different depth of 3D space than the ship is, so you can simply fly past the ship without taking any damage whatsoever. You just have to avoid the fire of the gun turrets as they aim at you. So it even has that in common with Bosconian, where you had to take out enemy bases, although this one is much larger than a base would be in Bosconian. It still feels relatively similar to me, so I think this one might actually be the most fun out of all the games on this Star Wars plug and play, just because it so closely resembles a familiar arcade game that was actually very fun to play back then and still is today. By the way, you'll notice that everything has been stretched to widescreen here. That is an unfortunate side effect of the modern TV that I plugged this into. If you plug this into a CRT, not only would the aspect ratio be correct, but the blurriness would be a little less evident as compared to trying to do this on a modern television. There are limitations here, but at least I'm not experiencing any lag when I play this, which is often a side effect of using things plugged into a TV output on modern HDMI televisions. They're not really set up for composite inputs to be very high speed and functional. Grievous Onslaught would be the second best of these games. It could almost be 1A and 1B, which one you would pick as your favorite. I get a very Smash TV vibe from this one based on the fact that all these rooms are interconnected and scroll in 4 directions, and you have to take out waves of enemies in each room before an arrow points you to the next room. And again, there are occasional upgrades that are dropped by the enemies when you kill them, and you're working your way towards Chancellor Palpatine in an attempt to rescue him from this quote-unquote Grievous onslaught. So, I see some replayability in this one. This and Coruscant Attack are the two games that you would most want to own this plug and play for. So, if anybody has ever taken the effort to actually dump the games on this Jack's plug and play, because I suspect, like most of these plug and plays, there's just an NES on a chip inside. There could be actual NES ROMs that you could play on an EverDrive, and these two would be fun to play outside of the confines of this little handheld device. But for only $3.99, I definitely do not regret the purchase, because that's certainly cheaper than any NES game you'll ever buy. Now, with this game, I get Choplifter vibes, and I can understand why JonTron didn't know Choplifter, because he described this game as nothing, absolutely nothing. So if you didn't grow up playing Choplifter on 8-bit computers, or maybe home console ports of it, then you wouldn't understand what you're doing here. You're flying over the terrain, you're picking up people, you're rescuing them, taking them back to the base, then you go out in search of more people. You've got some defensive capabilities. You can shoot back at the things that are shooting at you, but the arrow tells you which way you're supposed to be going to find the troops that you're supposed to pick up and take back to the base. So it's rinse, lather, repeat. That's the way Choplifter is. That's the way this is as well. I wouldn't say it's the super most fun thing on this Star Wars plug and play. It looks nice, visually speaking. It's certainly a lot more colorful than I remember Choplifter being on an Apple II computer growing up, but I don't know if that alone sustains the playability. Just because it looks pretty good doesn't mean you're probably going to want to spend a lot of time with this particular title. But as a throwaway inclusion with 4 other games, it doesn't hurt anything. I think Utapau Chase is the hardest one to justify here. This is an auto-scroller with a bunch of enemies that are running alongside you, ahead, behind, beside. You can use the B button to swat them with your tail, which is completely ineffective. And because it's an auto-scroller, you're going to run into obstacles a lot of the time, and you don't have any recovery. You just smack into it and die, and have to start with another life gone and try to make it to what I'm going to charitably describe as a boss fight, which just consists of a droid flying back and forth across the screen, which you have to hit enough times to take it out. But you don't even get any kind of feedback from it. You're just shooting at it endlessly, and it's shooting at you endlessly, and occasionally you pick up power-ups to restore your health as the fight continues, and it just goes on and on and on. I did eventually beat it, but it was tedious. Utapau Chase is, if it's not worse than Droid Invasion, it's right next to it on the list. I don't recommend that game. I don't recommend this game. The two that you want to play are Grievous and Coruscant. They're the ones that are worth owning this for, especially if you can find it for a price as cheap as I did. Although I think it would be even cheaper to find some sort of emulation of it online and play them that way. You don't really need to physically own this unless you're a diehard collector of every single kind of plug and play out there, or a diehard collector of every single kind of Star Wars merchandise. And if you're the latter, I say good luck to you, because there are 40 plus years of Star Wars merchandise at this point. And some people have filled entire mansions with this stuff and still don't have room for it all. So I have not tried to ever start a Star Wars collection, and I'm certainly not going to now at my age. But good luck to you if you're out there, because you can probably find this very cheap, and you probably wouldn't even settle for that. You'd probably want a mint unopened one that was still fresh. And that's the other thing that's kind of obsessive about Star Wars collecting, is people getting stuff mint in the box that they never even take out and play. And I think you already know how I feel about that from my previous videos about opening sealed games and letting them breathe and making sure the shrink wrap doesn't destroy what's inside, and then actually getting to enjoy the thing instead of looking at it trapped in its plastic prison or its shrink wrap forever and never being able to touch it, hold it, play it, or use it. So I'm not in that camp, but I'm not shaming those who are in that camp. If you like having things that are mint and have never seen the light of day, you do what you want. That's up to you. This plug and play for $4, it was all right. It's not setting the world on fire. It's not the worst thing I've ever bought. It's certainly better than that Space Invaders one that I bought, and I think I paid more for that. So this was definitely the better value of the two. I'm Mr. Mega Man Fan, and as always, thanks for watching.